Welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day. Wanted to take a minute this morning and talk about the solar battery box that I built. Built this thing last spring, and it actually works in conjunction with my ham radio gear, something we call a Go box. It does have a solar panel that goes with it, solar charge controller on the front, and some other inputs and outputs so that we can charge it in the field or power the devices that we need to power. However, I've got a little bit of a problem with it. I should have a voltage indicator here that is not working. So we're going to work on that today and see if we can't diagnose what's going on with it and get that problem resolved. Let's bring you in a little bit closer. Okay, before we start diving into the repairs, let's kind of take a look at a few things. So I should have a voltage indicator here to tell me how many volts are left in the battery. Power switch here that controls a power outlet here, so we can plug in anything that would fit into a standard cigarette lighter adapter can fit in there, so you can go to cigarette lighter to USB and have a couple of USB ports there. On this side we've got a couple of more USB ports. So that gives us this side of it. Flip the box around, we've got a solar charge controller here. So we can cycle through and see right now the battery is at 84%. Now typically, it looks like it jumped to 86%. Typically, when this thing is not in use, we leave it on a trickle charger. But I pulled it off a little bit earlier this morning after I noticed that there was an issue with the connection for this side. Could be a blown fuse, could be a loose wire. We'll dig into that and find out. And then this side of the box is the solar panel input. So you'd plug your solar panel up, feed two wires into here, and that would charge the battery coming from the solar panel. Okay, so let's crack the top on this thing. The first thing you'll see on top, this bundle of wire is an extension cable for the solar panel. So that just stores right in the top. This is simply an Anderson power pole splitter. We'll see if we can get this out of the way. So inside we've got a 35 amp hour battery. I'm not sure you can see it in the camera right now. A power distribution center over here and a low voltage disconnect unit over here. The low voltage disconnect unit is really a cool feature. It keeps you from draining the battery too far down and actually killing a battery. Once it gets below a certain voltage level, you can actually kill the thing to where you won't be able to power it back up and be able to recharge it. Alright, so I'm going to just kind of take a look at the connections. I know that this fuse here is going up to that switch on the front. So the first thing I'm going to do is check this fuse. Man, is that in there tight. Probably not the proper tool to use to remove fuses, but it works fairly well. Alright, the fuse looks okay. We'll put a quick meter on that and just verify that there is no issues with it. Alright, so that beeping you're hearing is the voltmeter telling me that the fuse is definitely good. So we'll go ahead and put that back in there and see if we can go further and try to figure out what this is. Alright, so now that we know it's not the fuse, while I was checking that, I actually realized there is a loose wire right here, and like I said, I'm afraid you guys can't see that, but there is a loose wire at the power distribution center. So we're going to have to take the battery out, disconnect it so that I can get in there to take a look at it and maybe tighten a screw or two up. Anytime you've got anything, any large metal object inside a battery box, you always want to be careful to protect the other post, the opposite post from what you're working on. That way, should this wrench slip, you don't want it coming down and making contact with this the other post and end up shorting the battery out. So I just put my hand over it right there while I loosened up that nut. Alright, now that we've got the battery out, we can see a little bit more about what's going on. So it is this wire right here that's loose. So we're going to get in there and see if we can't tighten that guy up and see if that doesn't remedy our problem. And while I'm in here, I'm just going to run through and kind of check the rest of the connections, make sure nothing else seems loose. Whoop, yep, we have another loose one right there on that ground side, so we'll go ahead and tighten it up as well. Alright, so just getting everything tightened back up here good. Double check all my connections, make sure everything is good and tight here. And it looks like it is. One thing to note is I always keep a few spare fuses in here. In case one of these happens to get blown, I'll have a way to replace that. Also, I've got a wiring diagram that I made when I originally built the box. That also stays tucked away in here, along with the user manual for the solar charge controller. So all those are just handy little items to have in your box just in case you need to diagnose something in the field when you do have a problem. So we'll drop that in there, close everything up. And as you can see now, we have voltage indicator on this side. The switch is back to working. So this switch is only for this particular power port. And then this gives you just a second voltage reading off of the batteries. Well, I'm glad to have this thing back up and running now. Know that all the connections are tight. They do work themselves loose just from being jostled around and moved around. This is handy not only for amateur radio, empowering our radios out in the field, but it's also a great item that you could have maybe for camping or in case of power outages at the house. Still gives you a way to charge up your cell phones. Anyway, until next time, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. See you guys soon.